Hello, David.
Members, we are now streaming live onto YouTube.
You're very muffled, David.
Okay, we're streaming, so we will begin the meeting with the usual formal notice. Good evening, welcome to the, excuse me, I'll just turn off that interfering telephone. The November meeting of the Transportation Board. Please note this meeting is being streamed live to the internet. Please could all members ensure the microphone is set to mute unless they are speaking to reduce any background noise, like I just did. Also ensure any other devices nearby are switched to silent mode as they can be distracting. Members should use the raise hand button. I think everybody knows where that is when they wish to speak and will then be asked to speak by myself. If any member loses connection during the meeting, then the meeting will be paused for a period of up to 3 minutes in order to give the relevant member the opportunity to rejoin the meeting. Thank you for that. So, as I say, welcome, and welcome to Lisa from KCC, Karen, Holly. Yes, excellent. Everybody's here. Without further ado, I will ask if there are any apologies for absence.
No apologies received this evening, Chairman.
Thank you. Moving swiftly on, any declarations of interest, gentlemen and ladies? No. Okay.
Chairman, yes, Chairman, I raised my hand. It's not a declaration of interest, but just to inform you, I will have to leave at about 1 minute to 7 if we're still going. Thank you.
Okay, that was a swift hand raise. Thank you. Right. Excellent. Noted. Minutes of the meeting of the 21st of September 2020. Has anybody got any corrections, amendments, comments on those meetings? If not,
yes, Chairman.
Wrong hand, Dick, but I'll take it.
I'll put a hand up, both hands, just in case. Under those present, it's nice to see that yourself, David Godfrey, Tony Hills, etc., and Just Pasco. I do have a first name, and I'd appreciate it if it could be entered.
I can get that changed for you, Councillor Pascoe.
And secondly, Chairman, I have to leave at about 6:45. I have some judging to do on a competition. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I win. Thank you. Then, as there are no declarations of interest,
Could I just jump in there? I'm trying. I can't find my hand button. I'm getting worse at this.
I'll have to look at your pretty picture. Go on.
No, that's very kind, David. Yeah, I think it's page 6. That's a bit down there, about double yellow lines up the Coast Drive. So yeah, by the sea. It was supposed to be done by December. Are we still on schedule for that? I think that's what it says.
Do we have somebody who can give us an answer to that question, please? Any of the officers able to update me on that one?
Could I suggest that Kate contacts our officer involved with that, Paul Thompson, am I right?
Yes.
He could give a response to that when he's about.
Okay, we'll make a note of that. If you could do that, Kate, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Certainly, I'll put that in the minutes as well.
Thank you. Okay. If there are no other comments on the minutes, I can sign them off as agreed. Can I say they're all agreed, gentlemen?
Councillor Berry wants to speak.
Oh, sorry.
I got my hand up there.
Thank you. I must remember to put that up here. Hang on, I'm just going to put up that small screen. Yes, Anne.
Okay. If we look at page 7, just over halfway down, it says Appendix A, Cherry Garden Avenue. Most of you, I'm sure, will remember that I mentioned the new paving wasn't very well done in a particular area there, tarmac it was. I had a complaint from a resident about it, and I raised it. And it says that the paving was undulating here and dangerous. It should never have been signed off. So if someone could pick that up and check it for me for next time, that would be good.
Okay, I think that's probably another one for Paul. So we'll make a note of that and get that looked into for you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Very sorry. I'm very sorry to butt in. It's actually something that Kent County Council deal with. I just want to let you know the contractors have actually been up and they've redone certain parts of defective areas. And I believe now the whole stretch is complete. So that's all been rectified, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Kieran.
Thank you, Kieran.
No
Thank you for
worries.
jumping in. Then we don't need to attract Paul on that one, but I'm sure Anne will tell us if that hasn't been done to her satisfaction. Thank you. Okay. Am I now dealt with the minutes? I'm looking at those hands again. It does seem to be clear. Thank you very much.
Have we agreed the minutes, Chairman?
Now I'm just about to ask you to do that. Can we now agree the minutes, please, subject to those two
I know you
comments?
started on it, yeah.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Unless somebody dissents, I shall take them as agreed. Thank you. I don't see any dissensions. Fine. Item 6, overgo of the PSPO's Public Place Protection. So we're very lucky to have Jess Hellman with us, who's our expert on these and actually worked very hard and put them into place. She's given you a very long briefing on it, but perhaps I'll ask her to introduce it and then ask you for any questions. Jess, over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Godfrey. Evening all, evening members. Okay, so you've had the report from myself. This report provides members with information in respect of the PSPO in regards to what can be enforced and the areas. The PSPO was something that we completed during 2018 and 2019. We undertook an extensive public consultation to renew the existing PSPO that we had. Following the public consultation, we implemented this in June 2019, and it covered 7 different measures. And those measures are listed for you within the report. But the measure that's the most important for us to look at this evening is Measure 7, which is in respect of unauthorised camping. Under the order, Kent Police and Folkestone and Hyde District Council are able to move on anyone who continues to act in an antisocial manner, having been asked not to do so within the criteria of the order. So that is in reference to that no person shall position any vehicle, caravan, tent or other temporary structure that is designed or intended to provide shelter or accommodation for the purpose of overnight stay within the restricted areas without prior consent of the owner or person in lawful control of the land, proof of which shall lie with the person remaining in any such vehicle, caravan or other temporary structure. So obviously that covers us for Folkestone and Hyde District Council land, as well as land owned by KCC Highways. If instructed to do so by an authorised person, then that person shall remove the structure and any associated equipment, animals or paraphernalia from the restricted area without delay. For example, a clear breach of Measure 7 would be that a vehicle is positioned for the purpose of overnight stay and that they do not have that prior express consent of the owner or person in control. We then have a number of options in regards to the enforcement of how we deal with Measure 7. And again, this information is listed here in the report for you. We are able to issue a warning, which can be either immediately or within a certain period of time, again, depending on the situation and severity, and that was attached with the appendix for you. The other option is that we can go straight to the issuing of a fixed penalty notice. Now, fixed penalty notices are designed to give an offender the opportunity to discharge any liability to conviction for an offence. So that means that they're admitting the offence and they are prepared to pay the penalty notice. And an offender can avoid, therefore, being prosecuted further by paying that fixed penalty notice. A fixed penalty notice is currently set at a payment of £100, and that full payment of £100 is due within a 14-day period, which would result in the case not being taken any further. If that payment is not made within the 14 days, then obviously we can take the case further with our legal department. You cannot appeal an FPN. So if you disagree that you have committed an offence, then that is your right to let the process go to court. So therefore, i.e. you would decide that you're not going to pay that penalty notice and you would go to court. But when you receive the FPN, there's actually not a formal appeal process. There are a number of areas which are currently covered by the PSPO. And again, that was information that was given in detail within this report. What's important to note is that the PSPO is not a district-wide PSPO, and that wouldn't be appropriate for us to have that. PSPOs are done on the basis of the complaints that we receive and in partnership, obviously, with the public consultation and other statutory partners that we consult with. So as you'll see below, there are a number of maps. There are 11 maps that cover areas throughout the district that it was appropriate for us to have Measure 7 in place. As you'll see, Measure 7 isn't in place in all of these areas across the maps. So, for example, Measure 7 is not in place in St Mary's Bay and Dymchurch. I think, from memory, that is the only areas that we haven't covered Measure 7 for. Measure 7 obviously rightly does also cover all district play areas and all district churchyards and cemeteries. So as I said, it's important to note that it's not ever advisable to have a blanket district-wide PSPO because the courts would consider that to be unfair and may rule against it, which then would obviously put the whole of the PSPO into question. And we have, when we completed this PSPO, obviously had a lot of legal advice from other agencies to support with this matter, and it has worked very well in the time that we've had it since 2019. The PSPO is there as an additional tool for us as officers to be able to deal with things such as unauthorised camping. For example, holiday makers that may come to the district and are unaware of the current legislation that we have in place. It's a good tool to use if they are causing an obstruction, and likewise for those that may engage in antisocial behaviour. I would also say, as an officer having experience in this, that 99% of people would adhere to the Public Spaces Protection Order, but it's not something that we can say 100% would work for everybody that we come into contact with. So I think, I hope that helps give you an overview, and I do hope that the report was helpful to you all, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that very concise description. Let's, Jess, we have Councillor Love. Yes, Councillor Love. Rory.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Jess for both her report and the run-through of the report. Very helpful indeed. I just wanted to go back to the context of the request for further information about PSPOs. At our last meeting in September, the reason this came up was because amongst others, I questioned the motorhome overnight ban in two roads within one of them in my division and one just outside. And there was a discussion around whether an overnight ban on motorhomes being parked on the road could be handled in a different way through a PSPO. Now, what strikes me about what Jess has just advised us is that where there's a PSPO, firstly, there is an opportunity for a relevant officer to make a judgment about whether there is antisocial behaviour. Secondly, there is a sunset clause. There is a review date and there is an end date of the PSPO. Now, both of those two factors about the PSPO appeal to me rather more than a simple, straightforward motorhome overnight ban. I raised last time the problem with an overnight ban is that it will even take effect against a resident who has parked his own motorhome outside his own house or her own house in the road, even if there's nobody sleeping in it overnight, and is therefore less targeted than the PSPO that Jess has just outlined. Because I would imagine, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I would imagine that if somebody has moved their own camper van off their driveway onto the road outside, and it is simply parked there overnight rather than somebody sleeping in it overnight, it is highly unlikely that an enforcement officer would require them to move it, because it's not causing the kind of antisocial behaviour that the PSPO is targeting. Secondly, the issue about the motorhome overnight ban that we discussed last time was that there's no end to it. Once it's in, it's in. It doesn't expire after 3 years. It's not reviewed after 1 year. And so what I'm really looking for is some kind of comment about whether there is a preference of using one method over another, whether we are going to see further overnight bans on motorhomes. And, you know, I mean, I said last time, I understand the antisocial nature of probably the very ones that measure was trying to target, because they're in my division. I know exactly the circumstances of some of them, and I know how one particular motorhome moves around various parts of my division and spends 3 months in one road and then moves to another one and then moves back again. And you know, I actually saw it on the East Cliff a little while ago. So you know, I understand the reasons for doing it. What I'm getting at is that the overnight ban is something which never expires and seems to be a pretty draconian response to what might be a fairly transitory problem. And in that sense, the PSPO route appeals to me rather more because it's more targeted. I wondered whether, I mean, this in a way is a kind of overlap between the area that Jess is responsible for and the highways area. And it may be that Jess feels she doesn't want to comment on the highways implications here, in which case we may have to ask for highways advice at the next meeting or something. But I wonder whether there is any kind of any input on the issues that I've raised that any of the officers may be able to offer.
Yes. And Karen, I thought you might want to. I've got you there, Karen. Can I let Jess just respond quickly first and then come to you, Karen? Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you, Councillor Love. Thank you, Chairman. You're quite right in everything you've just explained there, Councillor Love, in terms of obviously a motorhome and being able to deal with that under the PSPO. It would be something that we do, you know, we would require the complaints about, and obviously, you know, looking at the antisocial behaviour and making that proportionate response to that. It is also something that, again, you know, we can review a PSPO at any time. So a PSPO can be called in for a review at any time within that 3-year period. And also, you know, as you know, we've got our review coming up because we haven't called for a review any earlier. So we're due to review this current PSPO before June 2021. So that's not obviously that far away, but it's definitely something that can be reviewed sooner. I wouldn't obviously want to comment on things that probably are best placed with KCC in regards to the actual answer that you need there. So I might bring in Karen if she's got any additional information to add.
May I just briefly comment, Chairman? I thought this PSPO was to be reviewed after 1 year. It must have. Has it been reviewed this year? It came in 2019. Has it already been reviewed?
We haven't reviewed it as yet. We tend to review things on the basis of looking at how they're working, and unfortunately, because of being under obviously issues with COVID, etc., we haven't currently reviewed it. So should it be something that members wish to be reviewed, then obviously that's absolutely something we could look at addressing.
Well, the order attached to the agenda papers actually says this order comes into force on Friday, the 21st of June 2019, for a period of 3 years, with an initial review after 1 year. So presumably, I mean, I can understand why it may have been delayed because of the coronavirus stuff, but I would imagine that it would still be reviewed if that's what it says, wouldn't it?
I think Karen wants to come in, but I think Jess actually just said that they do intend to review, but other things have got in the way and haven't really exactly 1 year. But Karen, can you help us on that one?
Yes, of course. So exactly right. What Jessica said is that we have actually got the need to review. Generally, that tends to also be based on complaints that come through, so we can identify where that particular PSPO is working, if there needs to be changes, if there's been certain areas that are actually specifically a problem that aren't captured in the PSPO at the moment. So unfortunately, yes, it has been delayed, and it's been delayed for quite some time. A lot of our resources have gone to try and manage the COVID issues. So apologies that that's happened, but that is certainly going to be picked up on, which we can guarantee. Okay, I just wanted to come back with some of the comments that have been made. So with the PSPO being targeted, absolutely, that is the case. It certainly helps us if there are issues with any vehicles that have been parked up and they're in an area under the PSPO. The whole point of this is really almost the mindset. So somebody who doesn't want to get into trouble, who wants to be law abiding, is more likely to move. So 99% of the time, people will move. The ones that we have maybe on near your particular residence, Councillor Love, is potentially going to be problematic if they know that they shouldn't be there and continue to keep coming back. So either way, we would go through that process of issuing a warning to them to say they have a certain amount of time to remove their vehicle. After that, we would issue then the fixed penalty if they haven't moved. And during that time, they would then obviously be able to continue to stay there whilst we're waiting for the 14 days to click down and for them to pay their fine or their penalty notice, sorry. After that, we would then have to go through court proceedings, and that could be months for us to do that. So we would have to look at alternative ways of actually trying to deal with that particular issue. So the PSPO isn't a quick result, but long term, that would actually allow us then to then say, okay, you've now gone past that point of being allowed to park there. We've gone through court process. If that continues, it can then become a criminal matter. So it would then be over to the police. So that's where the win comes with the PSPO, but it's almost the time scale in between. If for any reason that it was actually considered to also be classed as an unauthorised encampment, we can still issue the PSPO, and we can go down the section 77 route that we would normally do for the unauthorised encampments that we've had in our district. So we can actually do those two together at the same time. However, if we know that that is somebody who's just visiting our district and likely to go, that would be the preferred option. For somebody who may be living in our district and is just decided that they're going to continue to park a vehicle in an area that they shouldn't be, then that obviously a PSPO is definitely the preferred option.
Thank you, Karen. I have, I think you've answered that Councillor Love's questions very well, thank you. We have Councillor Martin Wybrow, followed by Councillor Hobbs, followed by Councillor Pascoe. So Martin, please.
Yes, thank you. I really just had a question about sort of what constitutes the highway and how far the PSPO goes, because I noticed that Sandgate and Seabrook is listed as covered by Measure 7. One area where there is regular parking up overnight is Prince's Parade, and they are parking just off of the highway up on the grass verge. And in fact, I suspect one of the vehicles is one of the ones that Councillor Love has referenced that does move around the district and parks up for quite a considerable time. During the summer, there might be 1, 2, 3 parked up by the tram shelter. And I just wondered whether measure number 7 applies to Prince's Parade, or sort of whether it has to be on the highway does it have that sort of ability to be used as a tool here? Because particularly this summer, there was almost continuous overnight parking on the grass verge on Prince's Parade.
Okay, so Jess, I'm quite happy to jump in here as well, and feel happy if you want to add anything further. So with any particular place that somebody is parked, we would have to look firstly, is it covered within the map of the public space protection order? And then if it's not, we can then have a look at the unauthorised encampment methods that we use. But either way, if they're not physically on the roadside, we would then have to look at who the owner of the land is. So if we were the owner of the land, we would then action that. If it's considered to be private, then we would give guidance to the owner of that land and let them follow through that process. So we would have no jurisdiction to tell them that they would have to do that to start with. But if they were antisocial and it was causing a nuisance to the locality, then we could actually demand that the landowner take action. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. I think that does that answer your question, Councillor Wybrow? I think it's,
yes, that's fine. I
clear as
think
we can get.
depends who owns it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pascal. No, I had Councillor Hobbs. Dick, Frank. Here we go.
You're on mute, Councillor Hobbs.
You need to unmute, Frank.
That's all right.
There you go.
I'm better now. I was pleased to hear from Karen what I think she said was it's not all set in stone, that if there are complaints from areas that aren't included in this original list, they could be added, bearing in mind that all of the North Downs is free from restriction at the moment. I can think of one or two places where there might have been complaints, but there obviously haven't been. What sort of level of complaint do you need before you add a place to the list?
We would need to have evidence that there has been a concern. So if there has been somebody who has phoned up and actually registered a complaint for a particular road, and we've either identified it or we've at least seen that it's there, that is a record. If we then get to see that they're not working with us, they're not leaving when we've issued a warning to them, and it's a continuous problem, then we could actually then look at that as being a particular candidate to actually go on to the public space protection order. But we would have to see more than just one phone call. It could just be somebody who's like broken down, like need a new tyre, member of the family's not well and it's the person that's driving. So we have to be a little bit lenient, and sometimes we're aware that we don't always get told the truth by the people that are driving because they want a freebie night rather than paying to go somewhere. So we try to be as professional as possible and give people the benefit of the doubt, which is why we have the freedom to be able to say, you've got 24 hours, 48 hours to get a mechanic out, or, you know, whatever it might be. But more than one phone call would be needed. If it's more than one in a particular road, we could look at adding that road on. If it is a particular area that is continuously being hit by this particular problem, we could look at a certain area to be included. But what we do need to be very mindful of is that we cannot have a complete blanket ban, purely because then it means that the likes of the person who is unwell or has broken down has nowhere safe that they can park on the side of the road, which is really what they need to consider if it goes to court.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's fine, thank you.
Councillor Pascoe, Dick.
Yeah, thank you, David. Actually, Martin asked the question I wanted to discuss, but in a specific manner. There was a van parked at the junction of Creek Road West and the A260 at the top of the hill, and it was there for month on month, and I reported it to the council, and I wonder how long it actually takes to get some action taken after something like that has been reported. And thank you for that.
Okay. I can only apologise that you haven't actually heard back. Was that actually sent through to, did you receive any notification that you'd actually been, that it come through to our department at all, Councillor Pascoe? Okay. I can only apologise. We're normally very, very efficient in things like that. So I will have to look into that to find out what went wrong. Normally, as soon as we're notified of any kind of encampment like that, we then have officers that go out pretty much on the same day. Maybe just from the point of view of any other unauthorised encampment, we actually make that our priority. We go out on the day, we make certain that that is not a caravan that's just parked there waiting for 10 others to turn up. So I can only apologise that's got lost in the system. I'm not certain why that has not been picked up. So I can't say any more than that.
Councillor Pascoe, could I just come in there? Apologies, as it's Jess, apologies, as Karen said. I don't know if we're talking about the same caravan, and I don't recall seeing an email from yourself, although it wouldn't have directly come to me. Generally, things to do with the PSPO are passed my way, but a particular motorhome that was causing us a significant issue up in that area was dealt with very speedily, and the issues were resolved there with the person that was in that caravan. So I'm not sure if we're talking about the same one, but I'd be more than happy to have a look at it for you. If you wanted to email me, that's fine.
Thank you, Jess. No, this was like a transit, large transit van. It was a van, not a caravan, and the owner was sleeping in the back. So it did vanish, and I assumed that the team had actually been up there and moved in, but after a week or so, it came back again. Thank you for that.
Well, perhaps
I would actually, sorry, if I could just come back there, Councillor Godfrey. Councillor Pascoe, it may well be that if officers have actually been up there and actually dealt with it, but it never stops somebody coming back again. It's if we obviously get repeat notifications, but without knowing how that's actually gone through the system, I wouldn't know. But what I can tell you is that we will come back to you and let you know exactly what's happened with that. Okay. Thank you.
Perhaps it'd be helpful, Dick, if you could just send Karen the details of the email you sent, who you sent it to. Then she can pick it up.
I'll try and find it.
If you can find it, yeah, but it might help her going back on that time. It's not there now. Thank you very much. I have Councillor Love coming back again.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I don't want to prolong this one, but I don't want to sort of revisit too much of what we've already discussed and what we looked at last time. But I do want to sort of place on record that I would be looking very carefully in future if there was any attempt to have a kind of knee-jerk reaction to motorhomes by way of a motorhome overnight ban, when for all the reasons that Jess and Karen have highlighted, it does seem to me that the PSPO route offers more flexibility. I'm not a big supporter of just banning things because, you know, one or two people don't like them. What the PSPO route seems to do is to tackle the underlying problem. And the problem is when you have antisocial behavior or a lot of such vehicles all in one place, or somebody, you know, constantly sort of taking up the road. So I hope that message can maybe be minuted so that it gets back to the parking people. Because if we found that without considering PSPOs that we're ever confronted again with overnight parking bans, and I would be minded, obviously I'd look at the issues at the time because there are some issues, some places where that might be appropriate, but I'd be minded not to be supporting that route because that seems to be less flexible, whereas the PSPO route seems to be more flexible and better targeted. So thank you, Chairman.
I think we have that message loud and clear. I'll just get to come back to Tony in a moment. And I'm sure Fred Miller, who's on the call listening quietly, will take note of that plea. Thank you very much. And now I have one more from Council Hills. Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's only a point of information, really, for Karen. We have a growing problem at Dungeness. One day last summer, I counted 13 mobile homes parked on the estate because it was listed, I think, in a European guide that you could park there free. Since then, EDF have now banned parking, overnight parking on the estate for mobile homes. Enforcement is still pretty light, but it has caused a displacement into the local area, into local car parks and the like. and any bit of waste ground you can get a mobile home on or van onto, they're doing that. It's going to be a growing problem as more and more people do this as a way of getting around. It's just a bit of information, really.
The success of Derek Jarman's house, yes?
Partly, but also more bird watchers.
Yeah, yeah.
Chairman, would it be possible for me to just come in there? It's Jess.
Yes.
Just to say thank you, Councillor Hills. We, as a community safety unit, did attend a meeting only a couple of months ago with some partners down at Dungeness, and that included EDF, some of the local residents, and obviously some of the local fisheries, fishermen, etc. And we had a really good meeting with them, and we were able to share information about the PSPO and gave them some support and guidance in that in regards to the motorhomes. Unfortunately, a PSPO in that area is not something we can action. Obviously, as you're aware, that's not land that we own, but I appreciate what you were saying in regards to that dispersal, and perhaps that's something that we can have a look at when we do review the PSPO. Sorry, Karen, I know that you had something to say as well.
I was just going to say that I was also aware that there had actually been some advertising over in France about some spaces of land that people could come over to, and part of that actually covered down near the coastal park. So there was a lot of work that was actually done to actually make certain that that was all changed, because that was causing problems. So any bit of information, you know, we will always try to work with you to try and resolve these issues.
If I could just come back, Chairman, just to thank Jess for what she said. And I heard that, but that meeting took place. Next time, Jess, try and get me an invite. Thank you.
Apologies, Councillor Hills, of course.
Well, thank you, Karen, and thank you, Jess. I'm always confident when I listen to you at the CSU, actually, that you're on top of most of these things. It's always a complex situation when it involves parking and traffic and people. And I think the PSPO is actually a very welcome addition to our ammunition. And I agree with Councillor Love that it's the right way to go in some of these cases. So thank you very much for your contribution, Jess, and
thank you.
Look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Unless anybody else has any questions, we can note that report, if I believe that's all we're requested to do, with our thanks, and I can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Highway Forward Works Programme 2021, JTB 2003. Would someone like to introduce that for me? I think this is...
Yes, hello, it's Lisa Willoughby here from KCC.
Thank you, Lisa. You're standing in, aren't you? So thank you very much.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm actually the district manager for the Ashford district, but I'm standing in for James Bowen this evening. So I have to apologise in that my knowledge is very limited of the Folkestone and Hythe district, but I'm quite happy to take back any questions that you may have regarding the report, and we'll come back to you with the information after this evening's meeting sometime this week. So the Highway Forward Works programme for 2020-21 onwards, this is provided at each JTB. So it's providing an update on schemes that have been reported to the JTB before. And it covers the various schemes for road and footway, drainage repairs, street lighting, transportation and safety schemes, developer funded works, public rights of way, if there are any bridge works, traffic systems, combined member fund and street works. So I'm not sure how this is usually delivered in your JTB, whether you just want to go through, and if there are any questions you have on any particular schemes, rather than my going through each one individually, because this is just providing an update on schemes that have been identified at previous JTBs.
I think, thank you, Lisa. I think councillors and members would have been through this list, and if they have any questions on any particular areas, probably the best way to handle it, unless anyone wants to contradict me, rather than go through each one on the list yourself. So we have Councillor Pascoe.
Chairman, a vote of thanks to the team for a lot of work that's been going on Dover Hill and the new Dover Road near the Valiant Sailor. We spent a lot of time trying to get a satisfactory result to the speeding traffic up Dover Hill, and I'm delighted to see what's in the report today, and I thank our officers for that. It's very, very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony, Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, it was page number 36, I believe, about the top of Dunes Road. We have a situation there where it says details of scheme, traffic island alterations, which is quite important to us on getting buses around. The scheme will be made in January 21. I spoke to Phil Lightower, head of transport at KCC, and he said to me, I'll hold him to it, it's going ahead. So I was very pleased about that. In spite of these tightened financial situation, that one is going to proceed. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that information. I have Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, praise for the highways team generally, and also I think what is good news is the increase in the budget for planned highway works, and I'm extremely pleased that at Kent County Council we've been able to identify an increase in budget. Obviously, that's going to be that's going to have to take account of pressures brought about by responses to coronavirus, but it shows the intent, I think, to invest in our roads, and that's very pleasing indeed. One of the items that I'm especially pleased about is in my division. It's the installation of the zebra crossing by Folkestone West Station. And I'm particularly pleased, not only because it's taken place, not only because it's making for safer crossing, particularly as things get back to normal and people start using trains again, for girls from the Folkestone School for Girls walking along Audley Road and using that route to get to Folkestone West. And so I'm pleased, for all the reasons as to why you'd expect there to be a zebra crossing there. But I'm also particularly pleased because it was a good number of years ago that my former, my late departed colleague, Councillor George Bunting, and I pressed for this crossing as part of the works in advance of the high-speed rail service. And there were some works that were done on the junction between Shorncliffe Road and Beechford Road, and they were planned as the first phase. But there was always this ambition to get this crossing in at a later stage. And I remember to this day my colleague George Bunting giving very precise details, as he used to do, about which way people turn when they come out of the station and why they're not going to turn left, only to have to cross the road and then go back right again. And he was absolutely correct, of course, and I'm really pleased that this has now been carried out. So praise for the highways team at Kent County Council for that, and a degree of praise for my good colleagues in the Cabinet at Kent County Council for making the bold step to invest in our roads. Thank you, Chairman.
Enough. Everybody's praising everybody tonight. This is wonderful. We're getting lots of plaudits, KCC. Well done. Yes, I think we're done with that one. And thank you very much, Lisa, for your... Oh, hang on. I've got Councillor Berry. Anne.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Following on from Councillor Love's report on the zebra crossing, which is amazing because I've had a look at that and it works very well. There's another crossing going to happen at the top of Dover Hill, isn't there? Which is just above the one that Councillor Love was discussing on page 29, at the point of New Dover Road near the Valiant Sailor. Also, they are looking at a detailed design, and this should be going on from the 1st of December. But they're also looking to update and renew the safety lane on the way down the old Dover Road there. So that's good, because I know recently, I think Rory, you were involved and possibly Dick, with getting the reduction of the speed down that hill, which is working fine. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the work that is going on near Tesco's in Cheriton. There's a lot of work going on there for a long time, and no one could make out quite what was happening. But recently, there's been 2 accidents in one day there. So I don't know what's happening, whether the signs aren't clear or there's no one there sort of guiding the traffic. I'm not quite sure, but it's quite serious when you have 2 accidents in that area in one day. Thank you.
Kieran, did you want to comment there?
Apologies, Chairman, I have to.
I just want to update you quickly regarding the Cheriton Tesco's and the works going on. That's my patch. I spoke to our project manager, who's actually dealing with that particular project for Taylor and Wimpey. They're the ones doing the developments because they got so many houses going in. I did enlighten him on the fact that there's been a recent number of accidents there, and that will be his first call tomorrow morning to make to up the traffic management. It's solely maintained by the contractor doing the work, but that is due to be finished the first week of December. All of that resurfacing works, and it should all completely be finished by the first weeks of December. Whether it's going to run over, I cannot tell you. However, as for the incidents that are going on there, that will definitely be addressed first thing tomorrow morning.
Well, that's very, very timely. Thank you, Kieran. You'll be pleased to hear that, I'm sure. And I have Councillor Peter Gain. Peter.
Thank you, Chairman. Just coming back to the Tesco one, there is a lot of signage up there, so they have done that. The problem you have is cars speed off from the motorway, and that's when the accidents happen, because at the moment it's corridored off, but people coming out of Furze Lane, for example, that's where the smashes are happening. It's people speeding, and we did ask for a speed notice at the top of Cheriton High Street to warn the traffic to slow down as they come into Cheriton.
I'm sure that'll be discussed. I hope that'll be discussed at tomorrow's meeting as well as the forthcoming impact of McDonald's, I understand. However, that's something else. Councillor Love, you wanted to come back.
Yes, thank you. That particular works at Cheriton, that's in my division, and I mean, Councillor Gain, my good colleague Councillor Gain, has highlighted, I think, a problem that people have found for quite a number of years. Actually, it's not just while the works are going on that there seems to be quite a speed of the traffic coming from the motorway, and it causes severe difficulties for people exiting the BP petrol station, particularly if they coming out and wanting to turn right, and trying to sort of judge when they can actually get out. And I think Councillor Gaines put his finger on it, and maybe for the longer term, that's something that needs to have a little more attention paid to it. There are also some rather unfortunate, in my view, parking bays on the side of the road, which actually obscure the vision in the area around about the petrol station and Furze Lane. But what I wanted to say is I don't want to lose sight of the huge advantage that these works are bringing about. This will enable people to come from Tesco and from any of the roads in that area. and be able to turn straight into Cheriton High Street rather than having to go all the way around the motorway roundabout. And I think, you know, turning right there is going to be such a massive advantage for residents of my division. And it's one of the reasons I've been supporting this all the way through from when we first saw the plans at JTB, must have been about a year or so ago. So huge advantage. And I just, you know, it's always obviously unfortunate when during the works there are accidents, but we mustn't lose sight of the big gain at the end of the day. May I also just briefly comment, because I realized I didn't comment on it, was one of the member grant funded schemes, which is School Road and Tanner's Hill, which is also in my division. It's a very large division. That particular bit, I'm working on trying to get some greater adherence to the speed limit of 20 miles an hour in School Road. And I will flag this up because I'm having a little difficulty at the moment trying to get rumble strips put in to that road. And I'm told that the safety audit team don't like them, but I haven't yet found the reason as to why they don't like them. And it seems to me that that would force people to recognize that something has happened, that they've moved from a 40-mile-an-hour limit through probably the shortest 30-mile-an-hour limit in the whole of this district. It's all about 40 yards, if that, straight into a 20-mile-an-hour limit. And I think we need something just to reinforce the idea that there is now a 20 limit and therefore people need to slow down. So I'm working, if any officer can explain to me what the problem is with rumble strips in this particular circumstance where people have gone from one limit through another to another, then I'd be very grateful. Otherwise, I shall continue to pursue it in the way that I'm doing at the moment outside of this meeting. But I wanted to flag that up because I think that will be a massive safety improvement if we can get something done in that area. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Laurie. I'm not sure whether the officers can comment now, but perhaps they can get an answer for you about the dislike of rumble strips. And I'm sure you will pursue it diligently as you always do. But unless the officers want to come in, can I ask that we get an answer back to Councillor Love if they can find somebody who doesn't like rumble strips or why they don't like them? Okay, thank you. And the speeding issue is something that I think needs to be looked at, definitely. It's been going on for some time, so I'm sure that Lisa and Kieran have made a note of that because that's definitely KCC and highways, isn't it? Coming off the motorway there. Very good, thank you. And if we've got nothing more to say on that one, I think we can move on to the final item on the agenda and quickly ask perhaps Lisa or Kieran to update us on the local winter service plan, which we know is already operation. I know because I've seen it tweeted by Councillor Carey that they've started gritting. So over to you, Lisa. Can you introduce that one or tell us more about it?
Yes, I'm quite happy to, Chairman. Thank you. Yes, the report is about the local winter service plan, but also makes reference to the overarching winter plan that KCC have in place every year in the KCC winter policy. So this report is just outlining, across the county, KCC works in close collaboration with their district counterparts with mutual support during the winter when a winter emergency is declared. So this report comes from Andrew Loosemore, who's the head of Highway Asset Management, for information for all JTBs, just giving some background information on our winter service policy, but also the part that the local winter plans have to play. So Folkestone and Hythe district within Ashford, within KCC, has its own local winter plan that outlines the mutual support that's given between Folkestone and Hythe district within KCC and Folkestone and Hythe District Council. So that includes each year KCC will provide some gritting sand mix to districts. I understand though that this year Folkestone Hythe District Council actually have enough because not very much has been used from previous winter. I think you have about 30 tonnes in storage under cover at the moment. Hopefully it won't be a severe winter, but if it is and that supply was used, then obviously KCC would be able to provide more for that for your use. I also understand part of the Folkestone Hythe local KCC winter plan, arrangements are in place every year for pedestrian areas to be treated as well, those that have been identified between Folkestone Hythe District Council and KCC highways as priority areas. So plans are there and ready if we do have a winter emergency for those to kick in and take place. And then this report further down just gives some information as well about the farmers, the arrangements that are in place with farmers should a winter emergency be declared. And I understand that the Folkestone Hythe District, we have 16 farmers that we call on that are contracted to KCC that cover 20 routes, 20 predetermined routes. And I think that covers everything that was provided in the report for this JTB.
Thank you very much for that. That's very useful. I have Councillor Susan Carey, Susan, and followed by Councillor Hills, followed by Councillor Love. So Susan, there you are. You're not in your garden tonight.
No, I lost my background. Lisa, thank you for coming along tonight. I've got a couple of questions, one of which I hope you'll be able to answer tonight, and the other you could maybe check for me if you don't know. The first one is Kent County Council usually offers the parish councils a hippo sack of sand to deal with snow if they want it. Can you confirm whether that's going to happen this year, or whether, like the district council, they've still got sufficient supplies? And my other question is, some years ago, I secured Spitfire Way and White Horse Hill and in my division, and also Dover Hill in Folkestone, as being on the priority list for gritting in snowstorms, along with Bluebell Hill. They're the top ones in the county for priority, and I just wanted to be sure that that is still the case for this winter. Like everyone else, I hope it won't be a severe winter, but if it is, I want to be assured we've still got that pole position, because those are key routes for mobility in the town, and they would have very severe knock-on effects on the whole road network if something goes wrong on them. Thank you.
Yes, I'm happy to be able to answer yes to both of those questions. Salt bags are available for parishes this year. Parishes have been contacted. Some have come back and said yes, others have come back and said no, we're fine, because we still have the supplies from last year. So that's in hand, and I believe the deliveries have taken place. So most parishes should now be in possession of that if they have asked for one. And yes, the locations that you mentioned, they are evident in KCC's overarching winter plan, and they are included as priorities for the precautionary sorting routes and during a winter emergency.
Thank you. That's very reassuring. Before we finish tonight, Chairman, at the end of this item, could I? I've got a piece of information I think would be useful to share with the JTB. If you wouldn't mind calling me again, thank you.
Okay, I've noted that. Thank you. I don't know who was first. Let's go for Councillor Hills. Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's something that every year I've had a moan about this with Pauline Harmer. The gritting route is prescribed. It's obviously in a very tight budget. But last year, you won't remember this, but last year we did discuss about the idea in my local division that the power station, the EDF power station, they gritted the road at the kindness of their hearts, so at county cost, which I don't disagree with. It's an important aspect for safety. But the road that cuts through, that all the staff use to get there, which is Curtin Road, I wouldn't expect you to know where that is, but it cuts off Dungeness Corner, is never gritted and has a small bridge on it, which is very dangerous. And I do worry. And last year we raised this with Pauline Harmer, and she said we couldn't do anything about this year, too late, we'll consider it next year. Well, I don't think anything has happened, but I didn't see any maps attached, so I couldn't actually check. But if Lisa gets a chance just to check out Curtin Road, Kerton, and to see if it's on the list or not, because I do worry about that in extreme weather. Hopefully we won't get any extreme weather, therefore we won't have to worry. But just in case, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, of course. I'm happy to take that back and to find out whether that has been included this year, unless Kieran Greenaway, who's on the meeting. Kieran, are you aware whether that's been added?
I'm not actually aware at the moment, as I say, with Pauline going on to a secondment. I haven't heard of that particular road coming up, which has been added. I know Portland Road in High has been added, but apart from that, I can certainly check that up. I can certainly confirm whether it has been added or not.
If I could come back, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Kieran, for that. It's a tricky one because the route is so prescribed. If you had it would like to do a double loop, it would take a lot of time and therefore cost. But it is a very, very important road for safety. But thank you both anyway.
Thank you. Now then, I'm coming to Rory again. Councillor Love, Rory.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I've raised this one before. Every time we have the winter service policy, and I'm going to raise it again, and I will carry on raising it until it's given some mention in the winter service policy. We make a great play of welcoming the work that farmers have done, which is fantastic because they do a brilliant job in the rural areas. We talk about pavement clearance and we talk about which areas cause concern and how people would like them kept clear. What I'd really love to see us do is welcome the contribution that our citizens themselves can make, because very often people will buy a sack of grit and salt, rock salt, from one of the DIY stores or other places, and they'll use it to clear their own pathway or their own footpath up to their front door or whatever. And with just the tiniest amount extra, people would be able to clear, and very often do, clear the little patch of pavement in front of their property. And if you get everybody doing that, then we'd end up with lots of those little patches making the whole of the pavement all along a particular road. So what I'm saying is that there is a certain amount that we can all do as citizens. I know, I mean, I've said before, I've still got a small sack of rock salt that's now several years old, didn't need to use much last year. As long as it hasn't hardened up completely, if we have bad weather, I shall be out just doing a little bit in front of my house and keeping the pavement clear. And if everyone did that, as I say, it can make a big difference. And I'd love to see the county council welcome that kind of contribution, because I think that would encourage more people to be community minded in that way and to clear a little bit of their own pavement. So I haven't been able to see whether it's in the actual winter service policy and plan 2021, because that's not on the KCC website yet. The 1921 is on the website. So I'm hoping there might be some reference to this in the plan, but I'd love to see a reference to this in future in the report that comes before JTB, because that way we can disseminate the idea that the public, the community, can play a part as well. Thank you, Chairman.
I can't possibly comment. There's enough KCC members on this committee to be able to lobby the KCC officers, I'm sure. Lisa wanted to come back though.
Sorry, I just wanted to apologise. My Zoom call dropped out completely just as Councillor Love started on that last item. So I didn't catch anything apart from the first sentence and the last sentence. So I apologise for that.
So, some
Very
Mr.
briefly,
Chairman,
sorry.
some people would say that that is extremely fortuitous for them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I have that effect on Zoom, but basically, in a nutshell, it was saying, let's put something in our report that welcomes a contribution that the public, the community themselves can make if they bought a sort of, rock salt themselves with their own pathway, scatter a bit in the pavement as well, and it'll help keep the road clear, keep the pavement clear. And can we get acknowledgement of that in the reports in future? Thank you.
Did you want to comment on that, Lisa, or dwell upon it?
Yes, no, it's fine. No, all I was going to say was there is actually in my district a letter that I'd send out. It hasn't gone out yet, but it's due to go out next week to all of the parishes just about our winter plan. But it also includes in there the link to the snow code that's on the gov.uk website, which does encourage individuals and just sort of reassures them in terms of, you know, what's permissible to do and what isn't. So that may also be something that the folks in the Hythe district team actually do as well, but I'm not sure, but I just thought I would mention that this evening, and I can actually check with James Bowen once he is back in the office.
Kate, could I ask you to make a note, Kate Clark, whether we do something like that, because I'm not aware.
Yeah. Yes, certainly. I've made a note of Councillor Love's question and Lisa's response.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa. And I have Councillor Frank Hobbs back again. Frank.
You're muted, Frank.
Sorry about that. I was going to. What I was saying was that I don't recall that we've had a letter before going out to the parishes. If we have, that it hasn't been passed on by the clerks very often. But it would be a good idea if it was sent out.
Well, we can all check with our clerks, I guess, and we'll soon let you know if it hasn't happened, Lisa. Thank you. Well, for once, I'm going to come back to Councillor Carey and not let Rory have the last word, you see.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rory. I wasn't trying to get the last word for
Well,
the
Jenny's
sake.
not here, so on this one.
Okay, I just thought we ought to take a moment to share the good news about the active travel grant that we've been given by the government. Michael Payne, our county council colleague, and his officer team did really well in round one to get a significant amount of money. It was 1.6 million, and in tranche two, he's got over 6 million for Kent, and I know that the projects that will be going ahead are disproportionately in East Kent. So I think that's news that should be welcomed. Yes, Tony. And I thought it might be a nice note to end the meeting on.
Always a nice note to know we've got more money to do the jobs with. Absolutely. Thank you, Susan.
Oh, and I'm sorry, very, very last thing. Officers, we know winter's really tough for you. It's outside job. You've got COVID, you've got transition, you've got test and trace going along, and everybody wants you to do stuff immediately outside their front door. We know it's a tough job. We really appreciate what you're doing. So thank you. And, stay safe this winter.
Thank you. We'd all agree with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, well said.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody. I don't think there's any other business. There is no further business. I have no hands up. So thank you all for attending. Thank you, Kieran. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, our officers, Holly and Kate and Fred, if you're still there. And I look forward to seeing you all at the next one.
Thank you,
very
Chairman.
much. Good night now.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Chairman.
Good night.